I'm a professional dance choreographer and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States, and we're going to be taking a look at NCT's Wakey-Wakey dance practice as well as music video. So this is a Patreon request, so shout out to Kit for the recommendation and request. I love the fact that I have so many different individuals who want to be a part in this way and give me some really great videos to take a look at outside of what I normally look at. So I can't wait to take a look, and let's go ahead and get started.
You know what I'm talking about, baby. Wake up right now. You gotta wake. 사케부 frame, 히라쿠 space. 사카이 메오 코에 세카이의 strand. I'm still dreaming. 감각도 kiss 기회를 distance. 가만히 갔으면.
Oh, cool. Nice. That was so interesting. Like, some of the formation choices really made me think really hard on what was going on. But it had nothing to do with them. It just had to do with the structure of it. So let's go ahead and watch the music video.
You know what I'm talking about, baby. Wake up right now. You gotta wake. 사케부 frame, 히라쿠 space. 사카이 메오 코에 세카이의 strand. I'm still dreaming. 감각도 kiss 기회를 distance. 가만히 갔으면.
That was cool, that was cool. I do like the chorus a lot. Like how it's... I like how it shifts in pitch like that. It's cool. Cool. Yeah, I have a couple questions I need to ask the internet real quick before we dive into this. Okay, so I normally don't do this, but I think I need to just rewatch at least this first verse to chorus again for my brain, because it's just the format of the formations is so different than what I was expecting at all, and there's like no gimmicks or anything I've noticed, and I dived a little bit. Rino Nakasone choreographed this, which is, I mean, I've seen a ton of Rino stuff from SHINee, so I mean, that doesn't really like surprise me as much, but it is so, it's just interesting. So I'm just gonna watch for my brain again, just to see, to make sure that I understand what I'm looking at. Okay. It's this. Okay. I think I got it. Honestly, from the second verse on, it's fine. It's that very beginning until the end of the first chorus that is so different than anything I think I've ever seen in terms of formations and what they're doing in these formations. Okay, here we go. So from the top here, you have the boom, boom, really nice, very clear, exactly what he's hitting, and it's nice to have little peekaboo moments from all the other members. Looks great. They all turn to face towards the inside. Nice little, you know, I'm dead just for a second, or I'm falling asleep, ready to dream, that kind of stuff. They're like, hey, you need to wake up. He says, hey, you need to wake up right now. And then they all come out, dee, 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 extending those hands out, boom, taking it around. Now, some of them do have more of an angle and some have it more pressed to the front. And they bring it up, boom, and then they take it into a nice little basket run, but they dip it at the end, that dee, 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 dee. It breaks down to something a little different. Somebody in the back, they do it as a peel out from the inside to the outside, having somebody up at the top. Then they go from the outside to the inside, peeling it, rotating that shoulder. Now right here, this is what's interesting, is this is when it starts to get a little weird. Not weird in like, why did they make the choice? It's just, there's just a lot going on that my brain was not comprehending because I hadn't seen these types of things programmed in this way before. And I do know that NCT is not known for their synchronicity. They're known for their individualization, which is totally fine for me. I will, however, say this. There is a middle ground that we have to respect when it comes to choreography when you do it. It is okay a lot of times if a group is known for not being the cleanest. ATEEZ is a great example of that, but now they're known more so for their synchronicity because over time they've gotten with the right team of choreographers, and so you're able to see that implicit training of those movement qualities flourish for that group. Now here in this case with Reno, I don't know how much of Reno's work they've been exposed to, totally fine, but I will say there is a middle ground you want to be respectful of you don't want to just say, oh, they're not known for being clean, and the integrity of the choreography gets lost because part of the sequence that you're doing is meant to be done in a particular timing, and if your timing is never right, then we can't appreciate the intention of what the choreographer has, right? So there's a difference between like being that crispy clean, like 17 clean, and then being like that ATEEZ unrefined, but you still get your timing and you get your the dynamics in check. And there's a couple instances here where it does feel that we are not on the same page in terms of what we're supposed to do in movement wise, like our timing is off, and that can really affect how the choreography comes across. Now we're going to go through and see if it was just the choreographic choices that were made that made it feel that way, or it was actually them not hitting what they needed to hit in the right moments. We're about to find out. Because there is something, I will still stand by that. Even if it's okay if you're individualized and you're not all the exact same, you got to have your timing in check though. Not to the micro count, but you need to have it to where you're not going out of order when it's supposed to be an add-on. Does that make sense? It's little things like that. Anyway, so as they go, it was an interesting choice for them to kind of go all the way around themselves, starting in the columns and then doing that little rotation and then going back into columns, hitting it down. It does feel like we have that D, so it's drop, 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 and then they're all moving all into different spots, and then you have one of them just have this moment. Now this, okay, this right here, I don't know, even in the music video, it was a little dicey. So you have two people, right? Okay, so you have somebody over here having a moment. That's fine. He's not your feature. He's your feature. Everybody, it appears that everyone's doing the same footwork, but you only have 2.5 people dropping low. Everyone else is nice and tall. That is a discrepancy. I don't understand why that choice is the way that it is, and I don't know if that was purposeful or not. But I would say if everyone's supposed to do the same lower half, except for your two guys right here, then everybody's upper body needs to look the same as well. Because what happens is it just looks more muddled here because these two guys are moving independently, which is fine. I can see them, but it's hard for me to see truly what they're doing whenever this is not, I'm not understanding what's happening with everybody else. Does that make sense? And then that pool right there, and it's all of that. What is happening right now? Why is this boggling my brain so much? Okay. I dove in the comments because I needed to know if I was just imagining things or if it's as dysfunctional as it's looking. So a lot of people are saying it's one of the most complicated choreographies they have, and I understand why. Here's why it's complicated. The complication comes from the amount of levels and groupings that you have. Here's my note that I will say and I will stand behind because they end up doing it at the end, so we'll talk about it when we get there. But this whole beginning, they're not clear in the very important sections they need to be clear on so you can appreciate the micro groupings that are taking place. You shouldn't have to watch each individual member in order to see that. You should be able to very clearly see who your two are when everyone's doing something for 4 counts, and then when you see the switch up, that's the kind of stuff you don't want people to have to debate on, ooh, what's going on, right? And it has to do with what's going on in the torso. So everyone who was doing, because I can figure out the groups, that's not the problem. It's who's correct in those groups in the sense of how is it supposed to be done? Because we have like, I mean, for this one little moment here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people that are supposed to be doing kind of the same thing. Then you have 2 guys that are, you know, doing something different. That was clear. However, you only had 2 people that were dropped down low, but everybody was doing the same movement context, so it didn't make sense to justify them being low and everybody else being high in the torso. If everybody was low, I could very clearly see these groups of 2, no problem. And then whenever they chose to pop up into a different group, which is what we're about to see here, I mean, it's, yeah, do you see what I'm talking about? It's, you guys, this was picked on purpose just to make my brain have to work really hard. I have 0.75. Ah, I see what it is now. So what happened is they all rotate around. This is fine. So seeing this, you only have 2 people that drop down out of response to what's happening with your feet. Sorry, this effects. I can't get rid of them. These 2 drop out of response to what's going on here with him. Everybody else stayed as is. And then what happened is these 2 bleed up. Oh, it's a little smiley face. Yes. And then everybody takes it and they bleed it through using from the knee and draping it all the way up. Then they go space. Then you have this group over here that stopped moving, but you have all these guys still moving the exact same way. These guys are still doing their own thing over here. Okay, I think I'm understanding what's going on. Great. Now going into the little Harlem Shake, you have a group that's back here. I don't know if he's Harlem Shaking, but he's decided to start Harlem Shaking with everybody else. He's still featured, which is fine. Now you have a group of 2 that's joined in with what's going on here. Then you have your 3 that's right here. These 2 are Harlem Shaking together, but the only thing is my guy in the red pants. I don't know what he's doing, so I don't know what group he's in. Ah, gotcha. He's in the group. So you have your feature. He does the choreography, which makes you want to clock my back group right here. You have a Harlem Shake with everybody here. Then these guys are about to break away. Then keeping 2 guys that are still going to be doing the Harlem Shake. Got it. Makes sense. That like the pull away, totally fine. You still have your groups back here. Still have your Harlem Shakes taking place. That's why it feels so crazy. It's because you have so many different so many different groups going on at the same time on the same level. That's why it feels so complicated. Do I think that was the right call? I don't freaking know. If anything, it was a really great way for people to get bamboozled about what's going on here. Because in the music video, you don't really see this really that much at all. It's just here. You notice it. There's no performance version to my knowledge, but boy howdy, okay. So from here, you have those 3, they go boom, nice little accent. Then you have a new feature coming in the corner. Then you have those that kind of scuff. You still have now, instead of 2 people, you have 3 people joining the Harlem Shake variant. Then you still have those that are doing boom boom. That is similar to what you saw earlier in the very beginning. From here, they now double it up, and then you have a group of 2 hanging out in this back. Technically, you have 3, but one of them is kind of rotating slightly different. I would say my guy in black is rotating slightly different than what needed to happen between these 2 guys right here, unless my guy right here was supposed to be mirroring what's going on with my guy right here because our feature is doing the same thing. Then you have your 3 that are in this line, and then you have your 2 in the back. Yeah. And so then we have just a transition taking place, D-D-D-D. Then you have these 3 right here that are complementing what's going on with their features. Then you have those that are in the back, D-D-D-D, taking place there. And you have nice little dig, the boom boom. Then you have this ba-da-da. Then you have my group that's happening in complementary to what's going on with that feature. Then they all drop down, still have somebody pop right back up. Then you have a group of 3 over D-D-D, very similar to what we saw earlier. So if anything, this beginning gives off the energy that here are all these discombobulated puzzle piece movements that we're going to showcase in a coherent way later on. That's exactly what it feels like to me, because there's a lot of this movement, 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 but it's all combobulated, like discombobulated. But whenever you look at it in the sense of like, you have this little group over here doing this one little move, then you see this other group do it but facing a different direction. I feel like this beginning was meant to look incoherent, but they're all little Easter eggs of movements that you're going to see later on or trickle throughout the rest of the routine. That's what it gives off. Like, truly. Yeah, that's all this nice little pivot energy too. Like the pivots look like that as well. That na 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 na. And then they're also hitting different parts of the music as well, which could also hit each person's assigned a moment, and they all turn into a really polyrhythmic movement, if that makes sense. So we have that do do do. And that pull through. I like the little twinkle twinkle. And then from here, this is where it gets really, really clear of your groups. That whole beginning was a hot mess express in terms of trying to figure out what was going on. I figured out what was going on. That it is what it is. Okay, so now you have your two that are in complementary to what's going on here. These guys and your guy in the far back, and then your guys over here are all walking away. Nice speed change. Then from here, you have, ooh, what just happened? What was that? Yeah, so now it's turning into a cannon. So notice that first back line, boom, extends out. Then you have the next group, boom, out. And then you have another person that's joining in on what happens in group one. And then you have, oh man. Okay, so you have my guy right here joining what's happening here because they're in the same line, but whatever they're doing, an action to the shoulder initiates the next group. So instead of this group doing something different and this group going to what the back group did, just like what you saw earlier, instead you just see an accent of a shoulder to encompass everybody else that's involved. And it does feel, I mean, somewhat intentional. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have an odd number, yet you have it uneven to some degree. It could be they're making some sort of wordplay. Don't quite know. But if you look, this would be your technical feature moment, and you have 3 people here, 1 person hidden away, and then you have 4 people over here. Normally, you would see your center guy be like right here. Then you would see these 2 guys. This guy would be in line with this guy in line with this guy in line with this guy. That would create some sense of symmetry, but there is no symmetry here, nor balance. So that's why it also just continues to feel like a mosh pit of what's going on, you know? So you have those outside guys come in, complement each other. Love that D. Then we all have everybody walking, all doing the same thing dynamically. But then you have some of them drop down, some come up. It showcases the opposition that he has individually, which is nice. Boom, taking it, tracing it through. That boom, boom, boom. Now right here, we go into the Wakey-Wakey chorus. Now the second Wakey-Wakey chorus is a lot easier to figure out what's going on. Like from the second verse on, it is clear AF what is going on. It is his first verse to this first chorus. What in the world, right? But I kind of feel like you guys were expecting me to react this way. But I understand in theory. For me, I wish I knew the reasoning behind the verse and the chorus. I'm only going off to, just conjecture. And I don't know, there's no English translation for this either, so I don't really know what exactly they're talking about. So I went on a little deep dive, again, just to see if there was another version of this that was more clear, and no luck. So we're just going to accept it for what it is. For me, it's an agree to disagree kind of choreographic performance. I can't dog it because I'm not the one they asked to choreograph it. That's fine. I do feel like there is a reason why they did what they did. My brain is boggled right now as to why I cannot clearly identify or understand the choice, which is okay. That's life. C'est la vie. From here, moving on. So we're right here going into the chorus. Unison, and then you see 3 of them branch away, going more towards the front. Then you have everybody else do the same thing, but they're mirrored. So that's why it feels a little different there. Yeah, that one, and then they go and they basket run in. Then you have a switch and rotation happening with the trio. Still having mirrored information going on. And then you have your guys that were a part of this trio now a part of what was going on in the mirror group. So that was a really quick turnaround for them, but not quite. Sorry, just kidding. I thought that's what they were doing, but they basket run did. Now, what also happened too is he was probably supposed to do what he was doing, but he's fixing his ball cap. So that's probably why it wasn't clear there. Then you have all our guys back here with their arms extended up. I would say this side has their arms up a little bit higher than this side. So that's why that comes across that way. And we're showcasing different levels. So you have your 2 showcasing more in the mid, those in the back showcasing more of a higher, and then you have your front feature. From here, you have a nice little wave that goes on. Then you have those that are all facing different directions, waving, creating more chaos, but it's more structured here. Ding, 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 ding. Nice little dig action right here. Then, now this part, they created a different formation, a little bit more spaced out. And everybody who's on, you know, each given side, it is still mirrored, but they also chose this rotation to be a transition at the same time. Then they all drop down, little tap tap. Now it does feel that he's supposed to be our point, because these guys, if you look, I just don't feel like the formation is as even as it needs to be for what they're trying to come across. So he's supposed to be my center, so he should be right there. Then you have your back, middle, and then you have somebody hanging out in the back. I've never seen so much like even like choreography you normally see with an even numbered group on an odd number group. I've seen a couple formations now at this point where you have somebody covered up. I just find that so interesting because it is an odd number group, right? Yeah, it's 9 people. So that's just so intriguing to me, unless they're missing somebody and I'm not quite sure. But from here, I do like that choice. You have nice little action, and then it gets all nice and even once again. Nice little turnaround, we drop down, new feature right here. And they slowly come back up. Now I can go back to full speed. We've covered the craziness of the first verse. I mean, you know what? Just for good old time's sake, we're going to go back one more time to make sure we glean this correctly. Because I do know from second verse on, smooth sailing. It's this first verse. It's killer to me. Okay. Branching out once again. We already kind of called everything. This part's fine. Little accent. All branching out. Boom, doom, dropping down. Really nice. Little chime action. Super fine. We all come out. Boom, ding, ding, ding. Also totally fine. That din, 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 din. Yeah, dee, 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 dee. And then we take it. It's supposed to be I think it's like one group than the other group. Transition it in. Then we switch to different order in the column. We all run around. That was interesting because my guy over here ended up cutting. He's like one of the only people that ended up cutting to his spot, and that's why it felt a little off versus a really nice seamless like snake rotation, because somebody got out of line and got into their official spot. So that was an interesting choice there. Yeah, so these two dropping looks intentional. I'll give them that. Everybody else was very clear on what they were trying to do. Totally fine that space. Fine heat branches around forward. And then having those guys in the back are creating a new group. Then you have those that are in the front also doing another group. Then you have a group of 3 now come into play with your feature. No, 4 groups. You have your feature, you have a group that's in the front, then you have a Harlem Shake group, and then you have a group that's framing it around the back. That part's fine. Then the guys that were in the front that did the frame in the back, they're now doing the frame in the front. And then having your feature also do it. So it was a nice little 3-parter, kind of a little foreshadowing the choreography, and then brought it back there. When they go in the little body roll down, somebody was off back there, and that's why it looks even more dysfunctional. This verse right here, you have to be on top of it in order for it to make sense, truly. So they're doing a pretty good job for the most part. I think out of anything, they should have been a lot cleaner here, so it would be very clear exactly what they want to show us. Yeah, and then dropping it down, bringing it around through, and then you have the guys with the arms in the back. So you have a bunch of groups of 3, and then you have your outliers happening over in the corners. And then you have that na, 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 na. Then you have everybody branching it out. Let's also talk about this. The camera person. If the camera was a fixed cam, it'd be a lot easier to troubleshoot what's really going on, but because the camera keeps panning from side to side, we can't see a true front and a true center. So it's really hard to really know exactly what's going on in the formation. So we got to talk about that as well. I haven't been able to find a fixed cam, haven't been able to find a full cam, haven't been able to find anything like that of any sort of any music show, and this one also was moving. So pretty much is how I feel about it. This, out of anything that I wish I could see a demo for, I would love to have seen a demo version of this so I could really see the dysfunction of this. Because I want to appreciate it, and I feel like I'm missing something because I'm not able to appreciate it in its fullest context. From here, they go, they branch it. You have your group on the side, and then you have your trio that's happening right here, but it's technically a duo, and then you have a feature that's kind of complementing what's going on in the duo. They go, that dee-dee-dee-dee, and then they go, and they move nice and slow. Now, I do know in some of the shows, they had to very much limit their space. So notice the first group goes, expands out. Then you have your next group expands out. Everybody does a shoulder accent. Totally fine. Compliments well. They bring it in. No one knows. She's simple walk forward. Totally fine. Throw, throw. Doon, 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 doon. That was syncopated. Totally fine. On the bring up, that was fine. Make it, da, da, da. And I already kind of talked about this, so we'll move on from there. Okay, I think I covered as much as I can within the scope of my knowledge right now. If you have any more inside scoop on how this can make more sense to me, I'm all ears, but I feel like everybody collectively in these comments, as well as myself, this verse is versing in a weird way. But alas, I am wide awake because of trying to figure that out. Now we're going to move on from the end of the course going into verse 2. This part, totally fine. Wave through. Yep, nice little mirroring action like we already talked about. Hey, yo, that dee-dee. They go and they drop. They come back up. Ding, ding, ding. You know what? Let's do 0.75 again. It's just easier to talk through more things. Then you have your next feature. They go. This part was very clear to see. I felt like the cinematic version in the music video, we weren't able to appreciate what that was as much. Also in the music video, we saw like a little, like somebody stepped up and had a nice little cinematic moment that we didn't see here. So that's a little interesting note as well. I guess I'm curious. Is this supposed to be a group of 10 and we just have a group of 9 hanging out here and we're just doing a group of 10 formations? That I don't know. Go down, panning it out, totally fine. Then you have your 2 that just came off. They match the energy there, totally fine. Now notice, it's just super clear here. It really is. So they go into the diagonal, still have your feature. They're expanding the arms out and every other. Then they come right back in, pulling it through, dropping it down, creating a nice moment of rotation with their partner. And then they go, reverse it, have one group span up, the other group comes up, body rolls down, makes it look complementary to what's going on with the push and the pull. Our feature's doing a great job of just complementing in his movement quality. Then we drop back down to this moment here. Now, we have this. It's super fun having your feature. Then you have your group of 2. Then you have an accent in the back. Then they take it and they rotate it all the way around. Now, that's something that was interesting to me because it didn't feel like we had any structure going on over here. Could just be just how the formation worked that way. So we're here, everybody melts, then it goes. Technically, it starts right here. But then you see action happening from right here and they reverse it right here. So they go 1, 2, and then they reverse it the other way. And this guy reverses it this way. So it kind of feels like we have half and half. They reset it. But we have one of our guys not really move at all, right? Okay, he moved. Okay, he kind of moved. You know, not gonna lie, it's fine. He comes out, he does feel a bit delayed. It's those little details like that that will really help bring more clarity if you're going for a dysfunctional formation or dynamic choice. A little twinkling looks super fine. Bring it up, dropping it down. I like this choice. I have seen this a ton of times in Street, Woman Fighter, saw in Songgong, this is definitely a heavily used, layered, leveled formation. I don't know who did it first. Doesn't matter. It's nice to see, and it's a really great way to showcase all your members in a great way. Then you have a hat on the floor over here. I don't know whose it is, and that's fine. But you have one feature over on stage left, creating a nice complementary action. Boom, great range to bring it all the way over. Up and over, super nice. Then from here, so now everybody is facing around. Now this is a nice little, he breaks away and everybody's making kind of their own choice, but it's similar dynamic. Very clean and clear, understood that very much. Then you have a new feature come in. Then they all are creating a nice little movement through to showcase a new feature. He comes back in, and then they all go up, and then they bleed the energy around. Totally fine. Digging it down, every other, boom, boom, also totally fine. Now this part right here, boom, wakey. No. This is the cleanest thing we've seen the entire time. We're about a minute 50 in. Because it's unison, I think that was the intention. We have some of our guys that are a little bit too tall. If they're all supposed to be the same, that would be my note, is that really make sure that we spread those legs out to make that a huge moment, that we can appreciate that moment. Because if you have everybody that's really low except for like 2 people, but they're not supposed to be your feature, it's going to be harder for us to catch your feature. So that would be my note for my guy right here. He needs to get a little bit lower or wear sweatpants and not jeans if his jeans are too constricting. So that's my general note. Digging it through. Then from here, he has a nice moment. Then he drops right back down. New feature. This part, going to the outside and then branching it towards the back. Totally fine. They branch it down. Right here into a little dolphin action. Those guys jump first. The other guys dolphin first. So some jump up. Then from here, they're doing a little breaking moment where they go a little, actually not even breaking moment. You have our guys right here that are doing, what is it? It gives me one shot from BAP vibes. One shot. Duty, one shot. And then you have a little bit of tip-tap-toe going on over here, hanging out in the upper part. And then also you see that this V is not V-ing. My guy's a little too far over, so he needs to be right here if that's what we're going to be doing. So they're hitting different parts of the music. It's polyrhythm using all the formations. And the switch out. Very nice. Nice little ding, ding, ding. Little strobing action. Looks totally fine. Then right here, dee-dee-dee. Bring it back in. Then right here, they all branch to the other side. And then all of a sudden, it feels like we're in just a regular K-pop comeback. You know, it doesn't feel like I just destroyed my brain in the first minute, you know? And then from here, they extend it up. And then they bring it back down. Yeah, really nice seeing that choice. Hit, hit, hit. Super nice seeing that. Na, na, na. And notice everybody's nice and frozen. Very clear to see who your features are. Boom, bring it up. Na, 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 na. Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like we're all doing movements that are kind of complementary, or they're all kind of engaging in some way that it's all one big fluid movement, but we're all broken up in different moments. Then my one guy in my feature, he's the only one who didn't do this, so but everybody else did. So now this right here is a lot more clear to see, which is why it's just so interesting why I could not understand what they were doing at the forefront. Because it is much more clear seeing what's going on here because of the structure, the formation. And it's not because I was already exposed to the movement. It's just because of how they formatted it in their formation. These guys have their feet very close together. They should. These guys have it very far apart. Their arms are in opposition to each other. And you have these guys doing the choreo that we saw earlier, right? So you have an obvious 3 lines going on. This makes sense. Very clear. And then from here, this is what I was expecting in the first verse, which is why I don't understand why it wasn't so easy to read. That's my big thing in all this, is like, they're not, I thought that they were doing choreography, or it was all puzzle pieces that they would connect together later, and it would be so easy to understand. Part of it did feel like we didn't factor in when we set the choreo. We didn't factor in where everybody was. And so we were just like, okay, here's the choreo. And then, oh, why don't you pop up? And this is your part. So you got to figure out how to get noticed here, even though all of the choreography is midline or your level is the same. That's what made it really difficult to see what groups are going on. And that's why it's important to have levels in your choreography. Because also I know too, Rino Nakasone has had so many years of experience working with groups. So there's no reason for there to be such a disconnect in what's going on in this first verse unless it was intentional. Hence why my brain is not braining as much as I want it to try to understand what's going on, right? And so it is clear, way more clear here. I understand the micro groups going on. And that's what everybody wants to understand in this first verse, but it's not understanding in the same way because of the things I had already mentioned. And so having your group of 3 right here, then you have these guys right here, it's a different group that's been branched off. But they're not doing the same thing. And that's the downside of trying to go with this type of concept choreographically on a group that's not known for synchronicity. If you had a group like 17 do this, it's going to be a lot more clear to see what's going on. But here in this case, because NCT is known for their individuality, that's fine. But also, I think it's totally a healthy choice to figure out ways to kind of meet in the middle on some of this. So it doesn't feel like a mosh pit of what is it, you know? And maybe that was the whole point of it, just so people, it just gets a lot of attention because it's got my attention. Because I don't know, like I'm at a loss for words at this point, you know, which is totally fine. And is this my favorite routine I'm going to see from them? Probably not. But that's okay. Like I can appreciate what this is for what it is, you know, and I think that's totally fine. But you have your group of 2 hanging out. There's a feature hanging out over there. Then from here, you have a bunch of different people going on and doing different things. This is still very clear to see what's going on. You have your group of 3 and then you have your group back here. Well, technically you have your group of 4. Then you have your group back here that's doing something completely different. And then you have a different feature. That is fine. Very clear to see. I'm glad that exists. Then everybody joins right back into unison. Then right there, boom, really nice semicircle. I would say it's not quite as refined where it's clear to know what kind of shape we're making there. I love that up and drop. Then they're all dropped except for your one feature facing the front. They're all boom, nice little chugs and steps, similar to what we saw in the columns in the beginning. The little hey, I love that hey. And then you have a little group once again, little steps, everybody making their own little choice. Once again, very clear to see what's going on here. That's not my problem. It's that first freaking verse. That's swinging it through, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, bringing it through, and then dropping it down. Boom, hit, hey, dropping it in, hey, boom, boom. Rotation, once again, some people are a little bit too low compared to others, but that's also fine. That drum, and then they drop it down, boom, nice little pose to finish it out. Cool. So I'm still in the place. I'm very bothered at the fact that I am not understanding this first verse. you guys know how I am. Especially if you've seen a lot of my other stuff. You guys know a lot of times I don't like leaving something and just not getting it. You know what I mean? Part of me, God, I need a fan cam or something, like a full cam to understand what's going on here, to see what it is in concert mode. This part makes more sense. Somebody was early. That's what happened. He was too early back here, and he was supposed to keep going, and he stopped. He's supposed to keep going, and then he did this too early, and so that's why it felt a little bit off. Okay, I'm making sense now. We're gonna hold real quick. Okay, found a fan cam of something from like, I don't even know when. It was like 4 years ago or something like that. Okay, we're gonna watch it because that's also part of the reason why that first verse is not hitting the way that last verse is because people were making mistakes and it made it feel like an itemized secondary group when it wasn't. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I caught it here in the sense of them doing it correctly, where that guy I just said was doing, he went early. He did go early because he doesn't go early here. This part looks totally fine. Yes, we're at an off angle, but we're going to get with what we're given, right? So this right here, this part's fine. Every other, totally fine. Understand what's going on here. Ding, 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 ding. Bringing it through. Boom. Space. 1, 2. Now we have Harlem Shake from everybody. He's still going over here. Keep note of that. He's still going as he's supposed to be, but he was still in the dance practice. We're going to go back. Let's look. Super still. He was still. Now look, watch what happens. Space. Then he's still here. And then he goes early and then he hits it over. That's, I don't think, what he was supposed to do. He's supposed to still going and then he hits over. Totally fine. Looks great. Then you have that group of 3. So it's really important that you as an individual have to get your timing, because what ends up happening is it creates those types of moments where what's going on in that back row, this makes sense right here. Done away. That's fine. I can get over that part right there. It's fine. These 2 guys should have kept going at the same rate as what everybody else was going because they're doing the same movement and they're not added on to this group over here. That would have made it feel way more clear and understood. Then right there into the Harlem Shake, they're supposed to do that as well. And then they break away and do something different whenever you have your group of 2. See, I understand it so much more now after correcting that. Here's what's going on here. This is such a long video because I feel like we all need to crack the code on this. Here's what's going on. Everybody was doing the same thing. They dropped down an accent to go off of what he's saying in feature. He's also being featured as an accent over there. Then here's what happens. These guys are going to end up transitioning where everybody's going to do a Harlem Shake, but you're going to have 2 guys over here with a possible third that are going to be still going in this movement. It naturally showcases a bridge in separating the groups by having those 3 continue on in that movement. No space. This part's fine. Now he joins in on that part as well. Now he's going to go into the Harlem Shake. And what happens here is everybody starts doing the Harlem Shake except for these 2 guys. And he goes a little bit early in his arms. So for me, I guess my question would be, wouldn't it be better if he did not, my back guy hiding behind my guy in white, would it be better that he didn't do the Harlem Shake because he's technically in the line that's joining in with these 2 guys? These guys all do the Harlem Shake, or everybody does a Harlem Shake except for your feature, and then having your 3 branch away. That would be my note there. Because then look, he's no longer doing it. So there's a chance he did the Harlem Shake and he wasn't supposed to. So let's go back here and let's see. Okay, so he does join in on the Harlem Shake there. So I guess that was just a choreographic choice. If I were auditing this in order to keep what it was, I personally, in order for it to be very clear, I would have had my guy right here not do the Harlem Shake section, which is this right here. I would have had him still go like my other 2, so it has a very clear grouping, but I understand it can also come across like a really nice secondary add-on. So I totally get that. I get it so much more now. So now I have the space. 2 and 3 Harlem Shake, and then my 2 guys right here are the only 2 that don't do the Harlem Shake out of everybody else. Yeah, but then my guys are the only ones that hits over here. But then he's still, you know what? He ends up, you know what? Now that I say that, he does end up being still in that moment right there. I don't know if it's because in order to stay in a particular part of the formation, then out of space. 1, 2, and 3, 4. But he was still too early. That I still believe. They get nice and low, nice little tip-tap-toe right here. Then you have your group of 3 right here. Then you have your group of 2 Harlem shaking, and then you have your group of 3. That's very clear to me now. But it's because of the mistakes that were made in this first little phrase right here. It was hard for us to connect that until now. Turning it around makes sense. That slide through, little Harlem shake. Then they all turn. Then you have everybody do the same thing except for those 2 that are doing this framing to match your feature. That makes sense. And you have this bleed around going on, then your group of 3. Totally fine. Hitting it through. Love it. Do-do-do-do. And then you have your group of 3. This makes so much more sense now. Now, as a choreographer, this is the last thing in order to round out this video, because I know a lot of us are like, Jessica, you're beating a dead horse. I understand that. I get it. Totally do. There's 2 changes I would make in this. In order for it to be, it would make this feel still the same degree of what's going on, but it would make a lot more sense. Just 2 changes. And it has to do with the same, I think it's like the same 2 people. This part's fine. Honestly, for me, I would have these 2, I would switch these 2 around. Because if you notice in the column, he's the only person, when they slide it in right here, if they would have slid in, they would have actually, if they switched, these 2 guys would have switched in this column right here. Watch what happens. These group of 4 right here, they stay in the same spot. So they stay in the same order. Just my one guy is the only one that ends up going to a new spot. So I think they should have switched people before that transition happened, and it would have felt cleaner. That's one thing I would have fixed. This part, I can get over the fact that they dipped down. I think that was an intention with the feature. That's fine. I would have had, this is my note, I either would have had everybody Harlem shake, because so far these are the only 2 that don't Harlem shake. It's either have everybody do it, or keep these guys doing this movement, but have this guy not Harlem shake and do what these other 2 are doing. These guys are fine doing what they're doing. That's fine. That little space is fine. It's because these 2 right here are still, and they're not joining in on anything going on with what's happening in this feature. That's why it feels discombobulated, because they're on their own, standing still, which could be the intention of whoever. But as a choreographer, my suggestion I would have added to this pool is exactly what I said. You would have had him not do the Harlem shake, or have everybody do the Harlem shake except for those 2 that are featured, but he's technically doing the Harlem shake. Hence why I feel like if we're just going to itemize our feature over here, everyone needs to do the same thing, so it's clear to see who our common denominator is and who our outlier is. But because these guys are still, it makes me feel what's really going on in this group of 4, because he's disconnected from everything else happening over here. If you wanted him to be connected, then have these 2 guys do the Harlem shake too. But if you're going to have them want to have a seamless way of breaking away as a group of 3, then he shouldn't have been doing the Harlem shake. He should have been doing exactly what they were doing, which was this little groove and continuing on in that groove. So that's the change that I would have made here. And that would have fixed literally that entire section in my head, 1,000%. Because I love what's going on here. Do not get me wrong. Just because my brain was melting a little bit doesn't mean I don't appreciate it. I really like what's going on. Do I think I would have added extra levels for easier viewage of my features and easier viewage of the level, or not levels, of the different groups going on? I personally would, but once again, they didn't ask me. That's fine. They have a lot of experience choreographing the way that they did. I, however, still feel the way that I do. If I wanted to have people feel like, wow, this is complex and it feels very complicated, but I wanted it to be digestible. And I think that's something in this first verse here. It's not digestible right now. It feels a bit discombobulated. And if that was the intention, so be it, they win, right? But if they wanted it to have that type of, here's all these micro groups, but it makes sense, like they did later on in the track, those would have been the changes I would have made in order to make it come across that way. Very clear, still very complicated, but you're still showcasing who you need to showcase, as well as allowing those that need to be in the groups be in the groups where it makes sense. That's my overall note. Oh, boy howdy. I was not expecting this at all, but it was such an interesting challenge for me as somebody who has looked at a ton of choreography. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch. I apologize if I was losing my mind and you were not here for it. I am one who really tries to understand what I'm looking at, and this definitely made me have to reassess how I look at movement for a hot second. So I grew a lot in this, this was pretty much an hour of me trying to figure out what's going on. But I don't regret it in the slightest. I think this is great, and I hope that this will prompt a lot of great conversation. I'm very much looking forward to the discussions for this, because I know I am not the only one who feels this way, and this choreo is growing on me. I'm not gonna lie. I like the fact that it is as challenging cognitively for me as it is, because it just makes me have to process what's going on. Man, if you want to see more NCT, if you want to see more just K-pop content in general, I do have a lot of it on YouTube, but I have so much more on Patreon, and I always early release on Patreon as well. And like I said, this was a Patreon request. I do have a tier where you are guaranteed a reaction request every month, but depending on the day, it's sold out. So hopefully I'll be in a position where I'll be able to accept more of those tier memberships, because it is very limited based on the time that I have for that month. So if that's something that interests you, you can always go and check out and see if that's available. And then if not, I always have a lot of polls that Patreon has a huge influence on what I do react to. So you will get a say even if you never dive into that side. Once again, my name is Jess. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.